newest custom controller for the Xbox adaptive controller, and this one is pretty far out there. This, for lack of a better term, I call the switch box because it has a whole bunch of switches. Actually, no, I take that back. I call it the switchboard. The switchboard. Maybe the switch box. I like switchboard better. So what this has is 16 toggle switches on the front. So these stay on or off, and it has two momentary arcade buttons. These are 24 millimeter, the smaller size buttons. And if that's not enough, it has two joysticks. And these joysticks are set as floating joysticks, non-centering, so they stay in position. So if you have it forward, it stays forward until you move it back to the center point. At the back of all this are a whole bunch of jacks. One for each of the switches, and for the arcade buttons, and then for the joysticks. Now this is for the Xbox adaptive controller, so this is wired for the X1 or the X2 ports on the back of it, which are TRRS jacks. They're the, instead of the normal stereo, they are the 4-wire versions. So all of this will eventually get plugged into the back of the Xbox adaptive controller. You can see I don't have all 16, or actually 19. There's 19 in the back of the Xbox setup, but just have a couple. I tested them all though. So why? That's a good question. Well, for situations where a user needs to set a setting or a motion, an up, down, a direction, and leave it like that. So for example, let's say you had a racing game and you wanted the some setting to always be forward, like you're always driving forward. You can move the joystick and leave it in that position and it will constantly go forward. If you were using a first person game, you could have your person spin constantly or whatnot. So it's very much a specialty sort of one-off thing, but it was a fun project to think through and put together, and it has a whole bunch of wires, as you could tell. If I was going to do this production mode, I'd probably use a printed circuit board setup, but this actually was not as bad as you would think, because you can get these switches pre-soldered, which I highly recommend, because soldering these switches notoriously breaks them. So I did the soldering on all of the jacks, but and it was a lot of soldering, but really not complicated. There's no computer or anything in here. It's just straight through to the Xbox controller. So there we go, the newest adventures in switchboard Xbox technology.